Beacon Books, Galaxy Books, Science Fiction, Good Girl Art Sleaze, Paperbacks. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and this time we're going to take a look at some really cool books that were published between 1959 and 61 from Beacon Books. Beacon Books was a sleaze publisher that published, they came out of the Digests, Universal Publishing Company, which published uni books and intimate novels and other digests in the late 40s and early 50s. And then in the middle 50s and later 50s, they became Beacon Books in traditional format, regular paperbacks. And they published a lot of sleaze books from the 300 series on. Interesting enough, they also published 11 books that were Galaxy science fiction novels. And the connection between Galaxy science fiction and Beacon is interesting because Galaxy science fiction came from Galaxy magazine, a digest magazine that came out, I believe, in 1953. And it was very popular when it came out. And they decided to publish a series of Galaxy science fiction novels in digest size. And they published a bunch of these, maybe 18 or 19 or so, and they were quite popular. Then at a certain point, they changed to 4 books in the paperback format, short size. And after that, the books in the series then became incorporated into the Beacon Books series. So then you have, that's the kind of story between how that happened. And anyway, we're going to take a look at those books now. Take a look at, here's the spines of the beacons. You see the white spines with red lettering. All of them have great good girl art by Ed Emsch, by James McConnell, and by also Robert Stanley. So without further ado, we're going to look at some of them now. These are all basically first editions, paperback. Some of them are first editions, some of them are paperback originals, some of them are reprints. There's different ones. This is Beacon 291, Philip Jose Farmer, A Woman a Day. And that's a McConnell cover. Really nice. From 1960, Beacon 298, The Mating Cry by A.E. Van Vogt. And that's a McConnell cover. Really like wild, good girl art, bondage, kind of torture. She's bleeding. It's a pretty brutal cover. This is a beautiful romantic cover McConnell did. This is a really kind of brutal one. The Galaxy books, these Beacon books, they really sexed up the science fiction stories to try to get people, interested in them, and they showed the more lurid aspect of the novel, whether it was in the novel or not. The next one by Stanley from 1960 is number 270, Virgin Planet by Paul Anderson. And here we have a really traditional kind of good girl art cover, a guy being led away, not resisting too much, with beautiful women. This is on a world of a planet where a world of all women. He's the only guy, so he's actually looking forward to having a good time. But in science fiction, sometimes things don't always go the way you plan. Another Stanley cover is The Deviates, number 242 by Raymond F. Jones. Raymond F. Jones is a underappreciated science fiction writer. He wrote some good stuff, and this is probably one of his better books. It's again, they always sex up the covers on these beacons. 1961, book number 312, Sin in Space by Cyril Judd. typical Beacon cover. I mean, this is a Paul Stanley cover, sexy girl, and of course, it's just like if it wasn't for like the guy with the astronaut hat on and helmet on, I mean, you wouldn't even think this is science fiction. It's Sin in Space. It's by Cyril Judd, who was actually Cyril M. Kornbluth and Judith Merrill. So they teamed up to do this one. Another Stanley cover, book number 236, Odd John by Olaf Stapledon. He was a serious and earlier age science fiction writer from the 20s and 30s, serious writer, and then they sexed up his book. They say, he had to be stopped, for all women were his playthings and all men his pawns. It's like a Superman kind of story. George O. Smith was a fine writer of technical and hard science fiction. Book number 256, Troubled Star by George O. Smith. That's an Ed Emsch cover. He wrote, George O. Smith also wrote the Venus Equilateral books, which were a series of stories which are really, really great. He was one of the people that had the idea of satellites orbiting the Earth, used for communications, even probably before Arthur C. Clarke made that popular. Another Philip Jose Farmer, number 277, Flesh, McConnell cover, another sexy, mixing sex with science fiction. The Farmer did that in quite a few of his books. This one says, the secret dream of every man was his unlimited opportunity, inexhaustible ability. This is like a satire, and maybe kind of like an Earl Kemp guy, and Women in the Cage, kind of guy with inexhaustible powers over women. Fantasy novel, to be sure. Next galaxy is 305. The Male Response by Brian Aldiss. Every woman in the city was his. It's a McConnell cover, and it's from 1961. All of these show the sex aspect, the good girl art, sleaze aspect, which was Beacon Books. You see their logo here, okay? Which was what Beacon were known for. They were a sleaze outfit, but they published the remaining Galaxy science fiction books that were kind of in the hopper when Galaxy stopped publishing them as digests and as the four paperbacks that they published separately. Next one is 284. It's The Sex War by Sam Merwin. And McConnell cover again, and it's another fight sleaze, sex, science fiction. These all mix sex with science fiction. Fun books, though. They're really cool. There's 11 books in this series, and they're really great books. The last one is 263. Pagan Passions by Randall Garrett and Larry M. Harris. And that's a Robert Stanley cover. That might be Rhoda Stanley, his wife. He used her as a model, and maybe that's Bob Stanley. Larry M. Harris was the editor of Lancer Books, and was responsible for putting out in the 60s and 70s a lot of great science fiction. So there you have the 11 books in the Beacon Galaxy Sleaze Good Girl Art series. Some really good books with great cover art, great good girl cover art, and some by some really important and popular science fiction writers. Um, the Anybody looking for more information, more detailed information on these books, should take a look at Paperback Parade number 97, okay, which came out 2 years ago and still in stock. It's $15, a trade paperback, full color, 100 pages. And in here we have this Steve Carper's excellent article on Universal Publishing, the Galaxy science fiction novels, and all the information about these books and the authors, how the books became published by Beacon Books, how Galaxy started the series, and a lot of information about all the books. So if anybody looking for more detailed information on the books, then definitely check out Paperback Parade number 97. And there's a lot of other great articles in this issue as well. So again, I just want to hope you enjoyed this look at this science fiction sleaze series. The 11 books in this series are kind of get lost in the overall Beacon series, because Beacon published hundreds of sleaze books. They published then they became Beacon Signal books later on in the late 60s, and then the softcover library. And so they published hundreds of books, but these 11 are the early ones that were in the early part of the series that really were great science fiction novels with a sleaze bent, with the good girl art bent, because they were Beacon books, but they were also Galaxy books. So they're really good stuff. And I hope you liked this. And again, if you did, give us a thumbs up and a like. Thanks for looking. And tell your book collector friends and reader friends about this YouTube channel, and I hope you'll subscribe and give us another look again. See you next time. Thanks.